During the 1000-year Blood War arc, an epic battle takes place between the monk who calls the real name and the Emperor of the Quincy. This was a fight that was incredibly hyped and we were all looking forward to it, but what we ended up getting was a constant back and forth of Ichibe revealing some sort of ability or technique, and conveniently Yhwach having the perfect counter to any of Ichibe's abilities. Now in this video I want to break down and analyze this battle, discussing how Ichibe was initially winning until Yhwach had pretty much off-screen defeated the Zero Squad and had conveniently found a way to defeat Ichibe. Now while there is a lot to criticize about this battle, it is still very entertaining. So we are also going to be looking at Ichibe's abilities that he utilizes, and discussing whether if this final battle will be expanded upon in the upcoming anime adaptation of the 1000-year Blood War arc. So without further delay, let's begin my analysis on the entertaining but underwhelming battle between Ichibe and Yhwach. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. The battle between the leader of the Zero Division and the Emperor of the Quincy takes place between chapters 605 and 610. After the Zero Division defeat the elite Sternritters, the Schutzstaffel, Yhwach activates Ashwalen as he removes the powers of these Sternritters down in the Serite in order to revive the Schutzstaffel and to activate their holy forms. Yhwach then has the opportunity to move on forward so that he can challenge Ichibe. He first tells him to stand aside, but he responds to Yhwach by stating that he says his name so lightly and that he shouldn't blame him if he ends up losing his voice. This signals the beginning of their battle, as Ichibe draws two lines on the ground, as he states that this is the area where their battle would take place and where Yhwach will be defeated. Yhwach is pretty confident as he calls Ichibe by his full name once again, as he reveals that it will only take 3 steps for him to defeat his opponent. Into thin air, Ichibe draws the kanji for seal, as he once again warns Yhwach not to take his name so lightly. A giant hand emerges and strikes Yhwach, sending him hurtling back into the air. Ichibe states that this hand will blast away anything that it strikes for 300 miles. When Yhwach tries to respond, he realizes that he can no longer speak, as Ichibe reminds him that he had told him he would lose his voice if he took his name lightly. He then appears behind him and strikes him once again with this very hand, sending him hurtling through the air once again. While falling to the ground, Yhwach raises his hand and pierces his fingers into his throat, as he exclaims that he has given himself a voice. He then manifests a bow and arrow below him called Sankt Bogen, as these arrows are then fired upwards and one of them pierces through Yhwach's chest. This sends him flying back upwards towards Ichibe, as he tells Yhwach that shooting an arrow through yourself in order to just come back here is truly terrifying. The leader of the Zero Division states that he has been left with no choice and he'll have to kill his opponent. He looks pretty terrifying here as his pupils have disappeared and we can only see the whites of his eyes. Ichibe scratches his head as he comments on Yhwach, how he continues to say his name so lightly when he tells him not to, how that after he had slapped him away as a punishment he had come back. Even though he has grown old, he still seems to be the same troublemaker from 1,000 years ago. And this hints that Ichibe may have even encountered Yhwach 1,000 years ago, or that he was either a captain of the Gotei 13 or was in a lower ranking position within the Zero Division back then. With Ichibe left with no choice but to kill Yhwach, he draws out his Zanpakuto, which is in the shape of a brush, as the two are about to clash. They strike each other's Zanpakuto as Yhwach states that Ichibe's face has changed quite a bit. He comments on how Ichibe had become happier after resolving to kill him. He then stabs his sword towards Ichibe, but he moves back and swipes his brush at Yhwach, who ends up repelling the attack with his forearm. He then questions whether if this is all that Ichibe has got. He then reveals that his brush does not cut flesh. Its real ability is to cut names. He reveals that the name of his arm has just been sliced in two. Starting from today, he will have a partial arm. Yhwach appears to be affected by whatever ability Ichibe is using, as he explains to him that his arm feels heavier now, and its strength and abilities have been halved. When Ichibe states that his arm has been sliced in two, he means that his arm can now only do half of what it used to. Everything that Ichibe has just said proves to be true. When Yhwach attempts to swing at him again, he ends up being striked vertically by Ichibe. This stroke of his brush sends him crashing down into the ground. With this strike, he has just cut the name of Yhwach in half, as he reveals that the leader of the Quincy has now had his power cut in half. He questions how it feels to be smashed into pieces by the leader of the Shinigami, the very people that he loathes. He now stands before them with half of his power. Yhwach confidently smiles as he reveals that he is unaffected, as Reishi begins to build up around him. I find it really entertaining seeing these two powerhouses converse and fire remarks towards each other. Like here when Yhwach states states that Ichibei, the leader of the Zero Division, the one who stands on top of all other Shinigami, had feared Yhwach's powers so much so that he had to cut it in half. He actually feels pleased that he is considered a threat by his opponent here. To counter Ichibei, he reveals that he can give himself back the power that was cut in half, much to Ichibei's shock. He explains that nobody can take anything away from him, not even with the power that Ichibei is using. He goes on to exclaim that everything in this world is his to take, as columns of reishi appear from the ground surrounding him as they fire towards Ichibei. Before he is hit by them, he stops the attack by bringing his hands together and preventing them from striking his head. He then tells Yhwach that he has no idea what kindness is, because he had pity on him by choosing to cut his power in half, wanting to preserve his honor, because he would lose face in front of the Quincy if Ichibei had defeated him at his full power. This is exactly what I was saying. They not only have a physical back and forth, but their commentary is equally as fascinating to read. How powerful must Ichibei be if he so easily states that he can beat Yhwach at his maximum power? Ichibei then jumps into the air, stating that his honor will mean nothing so long as he is dead. He then uses Bakudo 62 Hyapo Ranken. This causes several beams of light to surround him as they fire towards Yhwach. He uses the reishi around him to construct a barrier to defend himself, as he uses an alternative version of Blutveen called Blutveen Anhaben, which blocks the attack. Fascinated by his defenses, Ichibei then uses a secret Hado spell called Tebusatsu, which generates an aura in the shape of a dragon's head. Using this, he shatters Yhwach's Blutveen Anhaben. Taking advantage of the opening, Ichibei then grabs him by the throat. Yhwach questions if he has really just touched him now. He reveals that Blutveen Anhaben corrodes everything that comes into contact with his body, and it ends up expanding Blutveen further, even onto another's body if he is touched by them. The veins of Blutveen spread over the left side of Ichibei's body, as Yhwach confidently states that half of his body will now be as good as useless. Ichibei then reverses the flow of the veins into Yhwach's face, causing him to bleed from his face. After losing his patience and stating how Yhwach had the nerve to trespass into the Soul King's palace and challenge the Zero Squad, it is time for his punishment, as Ichibei activates his Shikai Ichimonji with the release command painted black. Yhwach comments on the change in appearance of Ichibei's Zanbakudo, as the brush has returned to its sealed blade state, and that he cannot sense any spiritual pressure from it. Momentarily, Yhwach sees the blade as a brush again, as he is taunted by Ichibei, who asks if he is unable to tell the difference between a brush and a blade. Yhwach then blocks an attack as ink splatters everywhere with each of their clashes. He questions the nature of Ichibei's Zanbakudo, how it is just making a mess and not cutting anything. He asks whether if it is a blade that can cut names in half, as he laughs, reminding him that he can restore his powers if he tries that trick again. Yhwach confidently states that he cannot be defeated by the blade that he is using. What follows is probably one of my most favorite moments in this battle, as when Yhwach exclaims that he will defeat him with his own sword, he is stopped in shock, as Ichibei questions if he had just tried to say something just now. He tells him to try to say the name of his sword again, but Yhwach is unable to. He explains that he has removed the name of his blade thanks to the ink of Ichimonji, which was used to cover up the name, and anything without a name loses its power. At this point, not only is Yhwach's sword covered in ink, but so is his Quincy cross. Yhwach then uses his own power to try and rob Ichibei's power, as he generates 5 spheres of reishi, sending them above Ichibei. He then uses an ability called Saint Altar, as the spheres try to absorb Ichibei, but he ends up stopping the attack like it's nothing. It seems as though Yhwach was unable to steal his power, but Ichibei tells him that he did in fact steal his power, but what he had stolen does not belong to him. Ichibei's power is the color black, and once he unleashes Ichimonji, it affects Shinigami, Quincy, the dead, or the living, as all of the black in this world is now under his control. He then proceeds to cover Yhwach's face with his ink. Eventually, all of his body is covered in ink, as his fate seems to be well and truly sealed. He tells him that he has now lost his name. He then decides to assign him a new name, as Ichibei activates his Bankai with the command Shin-Uchi. His Bankai Shirafude Ichimonji now takes up the form of a white brush. Ichibei reveals that he was the first Shinigami to attain Bankai, and using his white brush, he can etch a new name onto anything that has been hit by the ink of his Shikai. He gives him the name Black Ant, as Yhwach's power is now comparable to that of an ordinary ant crawling on the ground. He has been given a fragile life because of this name. He then takes vengeance for all of the Shinigami that he has killed by creating a giant foot above Yhwach, which smashes towards the ground. Before he hits the floor, he is crushed by 2 giant hands, as it seems that he is well and truly beaten. Yhwach, falling to the ground, states that he had no idea that he could see so much with his eyes closed. He then bursts out from the ground and attacks Ichibe, piercing his body. Shocked that he isn't dead, we learn that Yhwach has the power to see all that is about to happen, and that any power that Yhwach sees cannot be used to kill him. At the end of chapter 609, we learn the name of this power, which of course is the Almighty. Ichibe questions why Yhwach didn't die. Why did the Black Ant name get peeled off of him? Why is it that Ichibe has lost? Yhwach explains that now that his eyes are open, from this moment onward he can see everything that will happen well into the distant future. He is able to know everything about whatever he sees, and the abilities that are within his sight end up taking his side, as they are rendered useless against him, as they can no longer be used to hurt him. This is the power of the Almighty. Ichibe tries to retaliate, as he comments that Yhwach must be feeling powerful after having removed the Black Ant name that he had put on him. With all of that black on him, he reminds Yhwach that all black belongs to him. Ichibe summons a giant black shrine called Futen Taisatsu Ryo, the Magnificent Death Mausoleum. This will destroy Yhwach once and for all and stop him from reincarnating. He orders him to fall to a pitch black hell, but Yhwach explains that he sees all. There is no counter to the Almighty. Everything that he sees is powerless against him. He reminds Ichibe that he is no longer without a name. He states that his name is Yhwach, proving that Ichibe is no longer blocking his name. He then takes everything from Ichibe as he blows up his body from his torso. Ichibe's head falls to the ground, thus bringing an end to their battle. While I was thoroughly entertained by this fight, I just found it all too convenient that Ichibe had the upper hand for about 3/4 of the fight, and it was heavily favored to him winning. But right at the end, this broken power, the Almighty, appears and brings an abrupt end to their battle. I wouldn't have minded if the reveal was better paced and if it didn't all feel so rushed. The battle started out so well, and it's a shame that it ended in the way that it did. It also really tarnishes the credibility of Ichibe and the Zero Squad. When the anime adapts this battle, I do hope that there is more of a back and forth, and the battle seems more evenly matched, as opposed to Ichibe having the upper hand throughout, and Yhwach right at the end pulling his ace out of his sleeve and ending it all. What were your thoughts on the battle between two of the most powerful characters within Bleach, Yhwach and Ichibe? Were you disappointed with its conclusion like I was, or did it match your expectations? Definitely continue the discussion in the comments, and I'd love to hear your theories about what else Kubo could have done to make this feel like a more fleshed out battle. Thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.